Welcome to this new chapter. Now, one of the main objectives of this course is to teach students how to develop dynamic database-driven web applications. So far we have done our basic PHP code and we have learned how to make variables, how to handle arrays, loops, branching, all those things we have done. So now our next part is to make our web pages uh, connect and interact with the databases. The first thing that we have to do is to create a database and tables and stuff like that. To create the databases and tables, generally we have two methods of dealing with database server. The traditional method is the console-based application, which we call MySQL console, and it looks like this. So you have MySQL console, and you have to type all the commands here. For example, here in the MySQL, I type the command create database db employees. Okay, and then for using database, I have to again type the command use command. For inserting data into the tables, I have to type the uh, insert query. So everything is we have to type, and when we type, we may make some mistakes, and it is time consuming, and it is error. So typing work, character user interface. But the WAMP server, or we have a tool called PHPMyadmin, and if we use this, if we have a web-based interface, which is graphical user interface, and instead of typing all these commands, we can use our visual programming environment, and we did not type all the commands. So we will be just asked for some options. We will be asked for some questions. When we answer those questions, the databases will be created, the databases will become active. We can insert the records, we can delete the records without much typing. So just to give you an overview, an example of MySQL console, I will open the MySQL console and just give you an overview how we were doing it in the MySQL. We'll go to our icon for the WAMP server, and then we'll go to MySQL, and here we have MySQL console. So if you click here, and the username by default is root, and the password is nothing, so I will not type anything, and you can do all your MySQL work here, right? So if you see, I have to, as I explained to you before, I will have to give command for doing everything. So for example, if I want to create a database, I have to type the query create database db college, right? Okay, so like this we have to give all the command. Okay, I'm just closing it now. So instead of using the MySQL console, the easy method provided is PHPMyadmin. So to access PHPMyadmin, make sure your WAMP server is again running, and open your browser, and you know how to open the localhost. You just open localhost, and at the bottom, either under tools or in the URLices, you will find a link called PHPMyadmin. So just open this PHPMyadmin. So you will be asked to type the username and password. So by default, PHPMyadmin has a username root. Okay, you have the option after logging in, you have the option to create new user accounts also with less privileges or more privileges. And by default, the password is nothing. So I'm not going to type anything here. So username root, password is nothing. So I can click go. So this opens up my PHPMyadmin, and in the next video I will cover how to do various database operations in this PHPMyadmin. So now we will learn how to do the various database operations in the PHPMyadmin. The admin may have to create databases, create tables, and stuff like that. So we will learn how we can do the following. We'll learn how to create database, how to make some database active, that is using database, how to create tables, how to insert data in the tables, how to display data from the tables, and how to edit data in the table, how to delete data in the tables, and how to export data from MySQL database to SQL file or CSV or PDF or XML, and many other formats are available. And we will also learn how to import data to MySQL from external sources such as some CSV file, XML file, or MySQL text file which contains the SQL queries. So to use PHPMyadmin, we will go to our WAMP server. As you know, by typing localhost, you can get the WAMP server. We'll scroll down and then we will use this link to go to PHPMyadmin. So this will open your PHPMyadmin. Now before we start, I'll give you an overview of this dashboard. So this, you can see, this is the name of the application, PHPMyadmin written here, and this is your home button. So if you want to come back to home name, you can click here, and this one is for logging out of PHPMyadmin, and this is for the documentation, and this is for some navigational panel settings, right? And on this side, in this panel, you see here list of databases available in the PHPMyadmin right now, or on the, we can say, the list of databases available on the database server. And here we have some options like if you want to deal with databases, some SQL, if you want to create some user accounts, if you want to export some databases, if you want to import some databases, and other options are there which we will discuss gradually as we move. Now, whenever you have to deal with database, the first thing that we need to do is create a database, right? So I will create one database. So for creating database, you click on the databases and you can type the name of the database here, or you can click here also, new. So that will also bring you to the same window here. So create database. So now, unlike in MySQL console, you need not type the query create database and then database name. You can just write the name database here. So let me create one database which will have information about the students and their departments. First, I will create database and let me give it name DB college, because this is storing information about something about the college, about the students, right? So click here, create, leave other things default for the time being, and click create. When you click create, you will see that this new database that is created, it will be visible here, right? So click create, and you can see now this colleges, this database is here now, right? So if you see, you have many databases, and if you have more than one database, to activate any database, you must click on that database, right? So when I click on the database, you can see here, this is my database server, MySQL database server, and on the server right now the active database is db_college. If I click on some other database like databases information schema, you can see here on the database server right now the active database is information schema. So I'm not bothered about this database, I am bothered about the database which I have just created. So once the database is active, it means that now whatever tables I create, those tables or queries or views or whatever we do, everything will be everything will belong to this database db_college. So for creating table, again I need not write the query. It asks me to write the create a table, and here I will just write the name of the table. So let's say the name of the table is student, as I want to store some basic information about the student, right? And here I should tell what is the number of columns for this table. So no matter whether you type 4 or 6 or 5, anytime we can add some more columns in the table, or we can reduce the columns, so not a big issue here. So I will leave it number of columns 4 and click go. So now you can see uh, it is here's the table name student which I just gave, and now I will specify the various fields or columns of this table. So let me go for with the first field. Let's say student ID, because I want to store the ID of the student, and the data type. So the next thing you can specify for the field is what is the data type, right? So obviously I will choose varchar, or what we call varchar, because the student ID has alphabet also in the ID. And what is the length, or what is the maximum number of characters allowed for student ID? Okay, to be the safer side, I will go with 12. And also we have to specify this field as primary key, because no two students in the college or in the university will have same student ID, right? So if you just move ahead, you will get here under index we can just choose primary. So it means that student ID is a primary key, right? So next field I will take is, let's say, student name, and again the data type for this will be varchar, because your name consists of strings and blank spaces and stuff like that, right? So okay, now in Oman we have long names, so to be on the safer side I will take it I will give 50, size 50. That means a name can have 50 characters. And then for this example I will just make very small tables only, because the idea is to explain how we can create databases and tables and all stuff like that. So we are taking some small example only. So then I can specify the department ID. So again we'll take this as varchar and we'll give it space here 12. Okay, now there may be thousands of students in the college or university, but the number of departments may be just 4 or 5. So instead of adding the department information in the student table, which is not advisable because the department information will repeat in many students records. So instead of that, it's better to have a separate table for the department, and we can link the department table using this department ID field. So our structure of this table is ready, and I will just click here, save. Okay, so this is the table. Okay, now table structure is ready. Let me make one more table for the department, where I will store information about the department. So again I can create table here also, so both options will work. So let me use this one, create table, and let me give this name as department, because this table will store information about the department. Okay, so here I will make the field department ID, and this field will link with department ID field of the student table. So if you remember, we gave this data type varchar and the size is 12, so I'm keeping everything same here. And here department ID is the primary key for department table. In the student table, department ID can repeat, but in department table, department ID will be unique, primary key, right? And here I will write department name, second field, and here I will store the name of the department. Let me, to be the safer side, let me make it 30 characters, and I'll go with save. So now if I click on DB College, you will see here I have two tables, student and department, and these two tables are linked to each other through the field department ID, right? So department ID is the common field in both the tables through which they are linked. Now let us now the next step is, we have these two tables, and now we want to add some data in these tables. So you just choose the table in which you want to insert data For example, I want to add data in the student table. I will click here student, and then on the top we have a menu item called this insert option will allow me to add the data in the table. So no need to write query. You can just write the values for every field. You can see the field names are shown here: student ID, student name, department ID, and here you can just put the values. So let's say for the first student, let's say the ID is J1, the name is Someshwar, and the department ID is IT. So you can just click go here. So if you click here now students, okay, and you click browse, so you can see here now this record student ID J1, student name Someshwar, and department ID is here. So in a similar way you can add data for other students also. So I will add some more data. J2 Arshad from IT. Again insert J3 Sammy, and from let's say business, department ID business. Again insert, let's say J4, and name of the student Senthil, and the department ID is business. So in this way, if I click on the student table, okay, and you can see under the browse, now the data for 4 students has been added. So Someshwar and Arshad are from IT department, their department ID is IT, and Sami and Senthil, their department ID is business. So this is the way you insert data in the tables, right? So now only I need to add information about the 2 departments. So I'll go to the department table, click here. So you can see here now the department table is active, and this department table is inside the database DB college, right? So here again I have to insert some records here. So before that I will just show you the structure here of the department table. So we have 2 fields here, department ID and department name. So now I'll go to the insert menu item, and it gives the option to add the departments. So the first department ID is IT, and I'll put the detailed name here, information technology, right? Similarly, for adding second record, that is information about second department, I will write BUS, this is department ID, and the department name is BUSI, business studies. Click OK. So we have information about these 2 tables, right? Now if you want to display data, okay, or after filtering data based on some parameter, again you can click you can go to the search button, and then you can specify here department ID, let's say IT. So that means display data only for those records where department ID is IT. So in another way, this is a SQL query: select star from department where department ID is equal to IT. So if you click here, so now you see data only of those staff where department ID is IT. So I want to show the students, right? So I want to display the names of students whose department ID is IT. So I'd go and click on the search button, and here I will choose department ID as IT. So display all the data from the student table where department ID is like IT. So if you click here, so you know there are 2 students, Arshad and Someshwar, who are from department ID, right? If you want to see business students from business department, again you can click here search, and then you can choose here department ID as business, and it will show Senthil and Sammy who are from business department, right? If you want to delete some data, for example, if I click browse and it shows me list of 4 records, and if you want to delete some records, so you can just, if you want to delete one record, you can directly click on this delete button on the record, and it will be removed. Okay, and if you want to delete more than one record, so you can just click on the records which you want to delete, and then from here you can click the delete button, right? Okay, so you can try yourself. I will not delete the data. You can try yourself. Now if you want to edit some record, so already we have some data here. So suddenly I find that Mr. Sammy is not in business department, he is in the IT department. So in that case, for editing, I can directly go here and click edit. So it shows me his current record. So from business I can change it to IT and click go, and you can see now when I click on the browse button, so now Mr. Sammy, his department is IT, right? So I've showed you how to display data by clicking browse button, how to see the structure of the table by clicking on the structure table, and right, structure of the table, then how to search some data based on some filters, how to insert data, and if you are still comfortable using SQL queries, you can also come to SQL and you can write the SQL queries. For example, if I want to display data of all the students whose department ID is business, so I can write the select query here. Select, so it is giving me help if I make some spelling mistake or something. Select star from, name of the table is student, and I want to put condition here where, see, if I type the name of the field, if I, it is giving some intelligence support, so it is giving me the list of the fields which start with the EPA. So I want to choose the department ID and then like, and then let me make it like IT. Okay. So if you want to format your query, you can also click on this format button. So you can see your query becomes more readable. So select, and the various clauses and everything, they are split into different lines. So it's more readable. And then after writing this query also, you can write go, and it shows the record of those students whose department ID is IT. So if you like to type queries, this option is for you. Okay, so all this about basic. The thing is, let's say you make this database and you want to send this database to your teacher for evaluation, or as a part of your exam you want to submit your PHP code and your database. Okay, so consider this scenario. So if you want to send this database, you click on this database and you have an export option here. So export means sending this database into a different format in some file, and then you can send it to your teacher or whomsoever needs this database, right? You can select the whole database, or if you want to select only, send only table, so you can choose that table. For example, if I need to send only department table, so I can just send department table and I can go for the export option. Okay, so let me go with the database. So if you click on the database, so right now DB college database is active, and now I click here export button, and then I can choose okay, I'm not going into the details here. I'm using the default settings here. So export method, I'm using quick method. I can choose the format here. So you can see here I can send the this whole database as an SQL query, which will be saved in the text file, and this text file you can send to the teacher, or You can send it as a PHP array or as a PDF file or as a Word file, or you want to send a Word file or JSON file, CSV file. So you can see here there are different formats. So you can choose anything, right? But your teacher will ask you, in most probability, the teacher will ask you to send the SQL file. So just choose SQL and then click go, and you see here you get one SQL file here. And because I selected database, so name of this file is name of the database db underscore college. So if I click and save wherever you want to save, let's say you want to save on the desktop, so choose the location and save the file. And if you open this file, you will see here so name of database db, and then you have this, all these queries are stored here. So create table, department, department ID, department name, right? And also the data is also coming here. So the values for various departments, similarly for table student. So the queries are stored. So anyone who wants to create this database, they can just import this file and run this file. Automatically the database will be created there, right? Okay. Now let's say I go to the databases. Let's say I go to the home. I click database and I delete this database, and then you click on drop to drop this database. So you can see here now db underscore college database is not with me, right? But no problem, since I exported it as a SQL file, I always have the option to import that SQL file, and again this database along with all the tables and along the all the values, it will be restored. Okay, so this is what your teacher will do when you send the SQL file to your teacher. He will download the SQL file and then import that SQL file. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we have to create the database. So I'll create database here. Let's say DB college or whatever name you want to give. Okay, so once you select this database, because you want to restore all the tables in this database, so this database should be active, right? So you have to create database here, then you can import it. So click here and then import, choose file db college, and then just click, because it's a SQL file, so automatically it chooses this SQL format, and click go, and the file import has been successfully finished. 17 queries executed. So everything is, this green color means everything has gone well, right? And now you can see here on this side we have DB college, and under DB college we have two tables: department, okay, IT and business, and student table with those records of Senthil, Sami, Arshad, and Sumesh. So this is how you import the file. Okay. So I think this covers the basics of PHPMyadmin. This will give you the skill and the knowledge that you need to start using PHPMyadmin. And in the subsequent chapters, we will be learning few more things, but we can start with this knowledge, right? Thank you very much.